Hello and welcome to the Fall and Fallow Heart Pod. Our aim at Fall and Fallow is to combat plant blindness in everyone, everywhere. Plant blindness is a term coined by the botanists Elizabeth Schussler and James Wandersee, and they defined it as an inability to see or notice the plants in one's own environment. At Fall and Fallow, we're striving to combat plant blindness by exploring people-plant relationships through the Fall and Fallow Heart Pod. I describe this phenomenon as one where we see the plants, but we don't see plants. And let me repeat that because I know it sounds contradictory. How can we see the plant but not see plants? We see the plant when we appreciate that gorgeous bouquet of flowers or that pretty potted plant that we got for our birthday. By using all five senses of touch, hearing, sight, smell, and taste, we discover the qualities that the plant possesses. We see that they're visually appealing and that they smell so good that they stimulate and excite our olfactory organs. They may even be edible, which just makes them more fun to receive. And when we touch the leaves, we're struck by how smooth and velvety they feel, and we want to be around them all the time. We can swear that they respond to the sound of our voice. It makes us feel good to be around them. Our brain reacts by releasing endorphins, and the entire experience gives us a sense of well-being. Now, together, all of these things help us to see our potted plant and our gorgeous bouquet of flowers. Regardless of what anyone says, we know that there is a definite connection between us and our plants. That is one way in which we see plants. How else do we see them? Our interest in plants is also piqued as a result of spending time in nature. When the weather is nice, we go for walks in the park and we hike the trails in the nature preserves. We go jogging, we have family picnics and backyard barbecues under the majestic shady tree. And we marvel at its beauty, especially when it's in bloom. So, we know about the shade that the tree provides. We may even know some of the names of the trees and the names of the pretty flowers. And this is a good place to start in figuring out our connections with plants. But to truly understand people-plant relationships, we would have to dive deeper and ask some probing questions. For instance, what else do trees do besides providing shade? Why are the trees here? What would happen if the trees were no more? Do we need them? And if we do, why do we need them? Since we coexist, do they help us? Or do they depend on us? Seriously, how are people and plants connected? Getting the answers to all or some of these questions will provide some context to the relationship that exists between people and plants. As we continue this Harpod, we will try to answer those questions and explore ways that people and plants are connected and can connect if the process has not started. Let's take a short break and please stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome back, everyone. In the first part of this Harpod, we saw that the enthusiasm, excitement, and empathy, which we feel when we are gifted a plant, helps us to see the plant. But the question is how much of the awareness spills over to other plants in our environment. Do we see the other plants such as the trees that line our street? The trees in our schoolyard or the trees in the park and in the nature preserves? Earlier on, we pondered what do plants do? What will happen if plants disappear? I invite you to stay tuned for the answer which will be given later on in the Heart Pod. Now, if you knew the answer to all of the previous questions, then this hotpot will just reinforce what you already know. But if you did not know the answer to all or some of the questions, then please stay tuned as we at Fall and Fallow try to shed some light on the connection between people and plants. This is an open invitation to all of my listeners. Please, let's extend ourselves to learn about the life and importance of plants so that we can gain some insight into what they do and why they're here. In any relationship, there is a connection between two or more things. So let's take this journey together and find out what is the connection. Let's go to break. Welcome back. We're talking about people and plant relationships. And in the process, we hope to discover why plants are so often overlooked, so much so that the term plant blindness has been coined to describe this state of being. I think that we can all agree that it is easier to appreciate something when it's personal, and by far the most recognized use of plants by people is as decoration or as a gift, as a form of appreciation and gratitude. However, the number one way the plants are indispensable to us is due to their ability to sustain life on the earth. We depend on them for the very air we breathe. Plants take in the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and breathe out oxygen, which we breathe in. Then we breathe out carbon dioxide, which plants breathe in. This process is called photosynthesis, and it is so seamless that we don't even notice it. Their photosynthetic activity is the reason that we can breathe the air of Earth's atmosphere. And if there's no longer oxygen on Earth, it will lead to global warming and entire species will gradually disappear. Life will become unbearable and Earth will become a barren, inhospitable, and uninhabited planet. So plants are literally the last stand between us and extinction. And they play a vital role in the circle of life. Now, in addition to producing life-sustaining oxygen, plants are a major component of many everyday items that we depend on. But this often goes unnoticed. We use plants and plant materials for shelter from the elements, which is a basic need. Our homes are built from wood, which comes from trees. That beautiful log cabin was probably constructed from wood harvested from the cedar, eastern white pine, cypress wood, or oak. The cloth that our clothes are manufactured from is spun from the fibers of plants such as cotton, flax, and rami. Now, without clothes, we would be vulnerable and cold and probably seeking shelter in a cave and lighting a fire to stay warm and dry. And this would be similar to what our ancestors did centuries earlier. So we utilize plants a lot, but the utility that we get from plants doesn't stop there. Plants are the gift that keep on giving. We use plants for food. Think Caesar salad, think maple syrup, beans, rice, apples, lettuce, and we can just go on and on. There are animals called herbivores, which also use plants for food, and they mainly eat plants for food. They include squirrels, rabbits, sheep, goats, cows, elephants, and deer. People fall in the category omnivores, and we eat both plants and animals. Now, if the plants that are the food source for herbivores were to be negatively impacted due to some environmental catastrophe, the population of these animals will decline because their food source is now scarce. The effect will be felt up the food chain and will result in shortages of meat such as mutton, beef, lamb, and chicken. This is serious, though. So, this is another example of how plants sustain life. Plants are also used in therapy and to create therapeutic environments. They beautify neighborhoods and they help to raise property values. And plants in a community garden provides a place for people to meet and socialize. But the final category that we will look at today is plants as medicine. People have used herbs in medicine for centuries. Herbs are plants with medicinal properties, but they're also used for flavoring, to provide the aroma in cosmetics and perfumes, or they can be used as food. For example, the plantain and the banana. Now, the list of plants used in medicines is extensive, but we're familiar with some of them. Some familiar names are mint, aloe vera, chamomile, ginseng, and echinacea. Now, the marijuana plant is a controversial newcomer on the scene, but its medicinal properties are recognized and are now being tapped into by the pharmacological industry. So, plants provide us with many of the items we need to survive, as you can see. And in our daily lives, we are heavily dependent on plants and plant products. This list of things the plants do is not exhaustive, and in your research, you will find many more ways that we can't live without them. Let's go to break, and when we return, we will continue our discussion on people-plant relationships. Welcome back. Before the break, we looked at people-plant relationships and we briefly touched on how dependent people are on plants for everyday things. Yeah, we talked about how much plants are essential to our ability to breathe. We touched on how our houses, our clothes, our cosmetics, our food, and our medications are all derived from plants and plant materials. Now let's shift gears. Let's look at how our actions affect the plant world. The most glaring example that comes to my mind is when we go away on vacation and we forget to water our household plants. We've all had that experience. And on our return home, we find wilted, dried up plants. Cause and effect. If we don't water our household plants, they're going to wither and die. Similarly, if we don't water the lawns that beautify our neighborhoods, the grass gets brown and dies, and the environment is not as attractive to us anymore. On a larger scale, farmers must practice good crop management if they want to increase yield and grow healthy crops. That then ensures a good harvest. And this would entail the farmer utilizing weeding, irrigation, crop rotation, fertilizing, and pest management. Now, a farmer who neglects to provide an environment for the crops to thrive can expect a poor harvest, cause and effect again. This can lead to food shortages, and it's just more evidence that we need each other to survive. Other human activities such as burning fossil fuels and the use of aerosol sprays release pollutants into the air. This leads to a buildup of harmful gases such as nitrogen and sulfur and eventually to global warming. Global warming affects plants negatively and they cannot be as effective during photosynthesis. So the air we breathe in is not as pure in congested cities where pollution is more rampant. The air quality, you will notice, would get better as we leave the city and we travel to less populated and unspoiled areas. Other human activities such as logging where trees are cut down are also decimating the plant population and leading to environmental catastrophes such as floods, droughts, and erosion. Plants need people to survive, and people need plants to survive, and that's the bottom line. As we can see, the relationship is very interdependent, and there's a scientific term for it. Scientifically, this is called a symbiotic relationship. A symbiotic relationship is one where two dissimilar organisms benefit from a close relationship with each other. And there is much more about that. I hope that you can see from this brief, very dense monologue that people-plant relationships is a vast and interesting topic and will require much more time than we have to truly grasp the nature and extent of it. I hope that this Hotpot episode on people-plant relationships results in a respect and empathy for plants and that it spikes your interest in knowing more about the plant world. I hope it also motivates you to incorporate more green spaces into your environment and to advocate for the inclusion of green spaces in your community, your business, the building where you live, or the building where you work. Let's take our final break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Here's the answer to the question that was posed in the second segment. What would happen if plants were to disappear? Now, since they're no longer there to purify the air, it follows that the atmosphere would become inhospitable and we would no longer be able to breathe air without some type of adaptation or modification to our bodies. Life as we know it will cease to exist. It's an important issue because it is connected to the ability of this planet to sustain life, and being unaware of plants and their impact on the environment can result in devastating consequences for humans because plants connect us in the circle of life. On an upcoming episode, we will look more in depth at one of the ways that plants are invaluable to us and discuss plants as clothing. I invite you to tune in next week to hear more about plants as clothing. And as a reminder, you can find us on social media, X, Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We may also be on Spotify and Listen Notes. And at any time, you can also visit the Fall and Fallow website where you can listen to this and previous episodes of the Fall and Fallow Hotpot online. And I want you to remember, if we take care of plants, they will take care of us. If you take care of plants, they will take care of you. We take care of plants, they will take care of us. Thank you, and bye-bye.